Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Friday Nights in the Bayou. I'm your host, Grant Chachere. Of course, I'm a reporter for Crescent Sports and also the owner of Rougarou Sports Media. Joined here, by always, with Jace LeJeune. Well, I won't say always, but most of the time, a lot of stuff happens, of course. Um, with his job, because they're getting close to the bowl game, he's got to
Mm,
deal with all that stuff. So
yeah,
they got a lot of big time players playing in that. But Jace, um, a lot of great games last week. I mean, we're kind of spoiled a bit. There's actually a couple of games that we didn't talk about that I didn't
yeah,
even realize we were playing that weekend with what was it, Zachary and Opelousas, and
yeah,
then of course Pope John Paul too, and St. Martin's. That kind of went under the radar, and that ended
mm.
up being a great game. So Jace, kind of summarize what happened last week.
Yeah, Grant, you mentioned it. It was another crazy week in high school football. It was one of those things like the college football slate. Like everybody was thinking, oh, what was going to be a great slate, in college football, and you saw the craziness and the wackiness that happened. And that's what sometimes when you got these weeks that aren't as like high profiled as some other weeks. Well, that's probably when the craziness happens, and that's what we got a little bit last week. I mean, you saw it when Pope John Paul, again, the biggest win. You can say, like, how Vanderbilt got their biggest win in their program's history against Alabama. Pope John Paul pretty much did the same thing, getting their biggest win in their program's history against Harlem Berry, St. Martin's. And that was a huge victory there. And I know. I guess we'll talk a little bit about because we didn't get a chance to really dwell on the both those games, right? But that was a big win for Coach Pyatt, and Pope John Paul. I know they got a talented young team. They get a lot of their guys are pretty young, but they're really talented. DJ Jenkins was also great to have him eligible to play, and he's eligible to play for Pope John Paul. And that's a big get, obviously for obvious reasons. Great player.
Yeah.
Actually going to be playing in a Gridiron football bowl game at the end of the year, so big time player. And yeah, big win. Anytime you can beat a team like that that has a number one player, number one running back in the country is huge. So that's a huge win, obviously. And we talk about Opelousas and Zachary. Now it was scoreless at halftime, Grant, and I actually remember after I covered the U High St. Paul's game, I was listening to 104.5, and they were talking about they're actually interviewing Louisiana Prep scoreboard. So they were interviewing David Burton about the game, and David Burton said, "Well, guys, this is the worst offensive half I've ever experienced as a coach. Yet we're scoreless, so we're gonna be just fine. Just take a deep breath. Everything's gonna be okay. We get the ball to start the second half. We get the football. Let's go march down the field this first drive and show them we're gonna be okay. And just take a deep breath. Everything's gonna be all right. So first play, the snap goes over the quarterback's head 30 yards, and Zach loses 30 yards. And so Coach Brewerton said, "Well, that speech didn't work, so let's throw that in the can." But Zachary was able to, overcome that, and their offense finally got something going. Was able to overcome that, and and they were able to win. And they got a couple rushing touchdowns based on some short fields. I know they had one of their players actually blocked 2 points in this game, which was big. That set up some of those short touchdowns. And I know that Zacchaeus Malvo did get hurt in the game, but we'll see what his status is moving forward. But they were able to outscore. The only touchdown they gave up, I believe, was a long run from Deshaun Ford. I think around 77 yards, I believe. But Zachary had a great defensive performance, and their offense did just enough. I think they scored like 21 extra points, I believe, in the fourth quarter, something like that. But it was a big performance by them as well. So big win for Zachary, and this team is getting more and more confident, and their ability to win games like that is going to help them in the long run, especially when you got a young football team like that. But yeah, we've had some. It was a couple statement wins from some teams, like we talked about, and I mean another undefeated team we haven't talked about. Grant, Faraday is undefeated. They're 5-0. So like we're talking about teams that we don't really expect to have this type of start of the season. Like they're 5-0. Um, I believe it was is it Haynes Academy or
Yeah, Haynes
the
Academy. That's the one.
Haynes
Yeah, yeah,
Academy
yeah.
is 5-0
That's
as
probably
well.
the more shocking one of all of them, really, because Haynes Academy is really just an academic school, right?
Yeah, right. So that's another shocking one, obviously too, that not a lot of people were expecting going into the season. But I mean, you add in Pope John Paul. I mean, you add in. I mean, North Iberville's 5-0. I mean, we're about to talk about. Even though a lot of people expect this to happen pretty quickly, I'm not sure how quickly everybody expects this. But Lafayette Renaissance is 5-0 as
Mhm.
well, and their first year really as a program. So like, yeah, we have a lot of shockers and a lot of teams that are back for the first year in varsity, like North Iberville, teams like that. They're back in their first year of varsity or entering their first year of varsity. They're like, hey, this ain't too bad, right now,
Yeah,
starting 5-0. So. And you have more of these established programs starting off pretty slowly. I know there's a conversation we've had a bunch, but right now that's pretty much the headline of halfway through the season going to week 6.
yeah, Jace. I mean, and also just kind of some other headlines. The LSWA polls came out, and a lot of people weren't happy about it, man. A
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
I remember when I replied to 14 Productions tweet about the most recent LSWA polls. And like St. Edmund not being ranked, but Opelousas Catholic is,
they
even though
beat
St. Edmunds beat
Opolis
Opelousas
Catholic.
Catholic.
Yep.
Like Opelousas is 1-4. Meanwhile, West Washington, Opelousas is 1-4. They're ranked number 8 in the 4A poll. Yet West Washington is unranked, and they're undefeated. And they had some really big wins. It's not like they were playing cupcakes.
Yeah, Sterling's
I
up
mean,
there.
and
Yeah, what do we think?
yeah,
Was one of them.
like Sterling is different. Sterling is a 3A team. Their 3 losses are all against teams I believe that are in 5A. So it's like
They
I
played
view
Nova
that
pretty tough,
differently.
so that's
Yeah,
actually pretty
yeah,
good.
and I view that differently than let's just say Opelousas being 1-4 and all their losses against 4A and 5A
Yeah,
opponents, right? Like yeah, I think there's just there's a little bit of levels, and they played them all really tough too.
hmm
And let me look up start like I mean, there's a lot of stuff I didn't really agree with. I mean, like yeah, all four like three of their 3 losses to them against 5A opponents, and one of them is against West Washington, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
factor that in. Like they also beat a ranked 3A team if you want to play it like that. Um, and then like even like 5A, like they left off Mandeville and they put in
yeah.
Curtis. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Like Mandeville's undefeated. Like, and they
Yeah,
might be undefeated. They might be 6 and after this weekend if they be coming. I mean, if that's not convincing enough win to put them in the top 10, I don't know what is. And you see the stuff Nate Shepard's doing. I mean,
does Nate Shepard
yeah,
have
of
to
course.
run 12 touchdowns in one game to get them to vote?
Yeah, exactly. He scored 24 touchdowns in the month of September. Like it's
Yes,
something crazy like that.
6
I mean,
touchdowns a
so
game.
right, exactly. So it just doesn't make sense. Like I'm not saying like the guys who vote for the polls are stupid, but my thing is though, it's like just because a person has a name that stands out doesn't mean you should rank them, right?
Right,
And
right.
like I have different opinions about different things, and that's okay, and that's what makes all this great because we could always discuss this. But my thing is, like, you can't do this where you're leaving off a team who literally beat a team like you're leaving the team unranked who literally beat a team who's currently ranked in your bowl and has 1 loss, and the other team that beat them is undefeated. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? So it's just kind of
right,
like,
right. Well,
um,
my opinion on it, real briefly, before we go into to the games and everything, is that the LSWA poll should be. I mean, let the power rankings take care of itself. As far as like who you're playing, prep
exactly.
who you're playing. I mean, after all, that's what's going to matter in the end anyway, because that's based off seeding. But the LSWA poll should be okay. Who passes the eye test? Who looks the most impressive right now? Who's been
Hmm.
winning? Like that's what it should be. It's like the AP poll, almost right. Like what teams have been impressing the most? What teams have won games or undefeated? Have looked the part? I mean, that's what it should be, not based off who you've been playing. I mean,
Hmm.
you could get blown out 3 or 4 times against really good teams. And they're scheduling pretty tough. We should put them on there. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
the case. I mean, it should be the eye test, who's looked the part. Let the power rankings take care of that for themselves in terms of who's playing tough opponents and where seeding should be at. But the LSWA poll is just a fun way of ranking of who is who passes the eye test, and
Yeah.
that's what it should be. Is what teams have looked the most impressive so far.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of go off your point a little bit. If you want to go off of power ratings and you want to put Opelousas at the number 8, not Opelousas Catholic, but
Hmm.
the Opelousas Tigers themselves at number 8. All you got to do is look at the power ratings. They're ranked number 18. So
Yeah,
that's where you need to, like, you
that's what
don't have to
matters
be the
most at
power
the
ratings.
end. Yeah,
Right, exactly. It doesn't. You don't have to make it the power ratings based on who they played this season. So that's why they're 1-3 or 1-4. It's like, well, if you look at the power ratings, you're 18
yeah.
because they're a 4. It's not like they're a 3A school going against 5A schools. They're a
Moving
4A
up,
school.
like
This is the
playing
defending state
up.
champions.
Right,
Yeah,
they're at that level.
yeah, exactly. They're on their level. So
Mhm.
I don't get all that. But anyway, let's go ahead and break down 4 really good games real quick before we get to the heavy hitters.
Yeah,
We can't break down every game because there's a good bit of game across the state.
yeah,
So we have to break down at least 4 or 5 of them pretty quickly before
mhm,
really do the breakdowns. But
yeah,
Lafayette Christian at Lafayette Renaissance. We all know the storylines with this one. Lafayette Christian, of course, just recently let go of their coach due to some differences in opinions about how the program should be run. Uh, long story short, Lafayette Renaissance, of course, Hunter Landry's the head coach. He was the head coach of Lafayette Christian last year. And
yeah.
then Trent Polk is the director of football operations at Lafayette Renaissance, who
Mhm.
was the longtime head coach of Lafayette Christian for like at least 8 to 10 years before Hunter Landry took over. So a
Yeah,
lot of ties between the two programs.
yeah.
And even the other people on the Lafayette Renaissance staff were
Mhm.
originally on LCA staff. So, Jace, uh, who you got in this game briefly?
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Evangel, casting off and starring Calvary Baptist and almost in that way. But in this game, I mean, obviously a lot of storylines. I mean, everybody knows each other obviously because of the LCA coaching staff. That was a big part of making it a powerhouse. Is now Lafayette Renaissance trying to do the same thing. So not a lot of love lost between in the matchup. But I'm gonna go with LCA though, at least for this year. Now in the future, I mean, Lafayette Renaissance is going to build up something pretty special. But for this year, I like how LCA responded last week. With everything that happened during the week with the coaching change and everything, they played Central really tough. And you go on the road and play Central down to the last minute. You know how good Central's been playing. So I think for me, I'm gonna go with LCA to win this one.
Mm-hmm. Minden and North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean Minden's undefeated, right? But you look at North DeSoto, they are a favorite to win the state championship. I don't think Minden has played a team like North DeSoto yet that can score, that has Luke Delafield. And I know they're suffering some injuries right now on the offensive side of the football, but still you have Luke Delafield at quarterback, and you have Dennis Dunn as your head coach. This is the toughest game by far for Minden, toughest challenge. But unfortunately, I think their undefeated season comes to an end. I got North DeSoto.
Yeah, same here. And also, I'm going to pick LCA for the previous matchup. Archbishop Shaw at St. James.
Big win for St. James last week, over St. Charles Catholic. I mean, we talk about the struggles St. Charles Catholic has had. St. James is still really talented. I mean, they're young, but they're really talented. You know that. And Coach Davis does a great job with that program. But right now, Archbishop Shaw is a machine right now. They really got it going. That big win over LCA, I think, is going to be a big turn point for them on their season. I like Michigan South, I like to call them a whole lot. Jasper Parker and Jacob Washington, those guys. So give me Archbishop Shaw to win that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm going to pick Archbishop Shaw too. And what about Madison Prep Southern Lab?
Ooh, that's gonna be a good one. Southern Lab is coming off their first loss of the season to Denham Springs, and Denham Springs had a pretty impressive performance. I think right now Madison Prep is finding their groove a little bit. They've had a couple impressive wins. They actually defeated Parkview last week in a high scoring affair. So I like how they're really stacking each other really big wins. That's gonna be a really good game. Grant, we actually covered that game last year on a Thursday, so that's gonna be a really fun game, and it could go either way. But I like just the momentum that Madison Prep's building right now and the way they're playing a little bit more. So give me Madison Prep to win that football game.
Mm-hmm. And last one, um, CE Bird at Huntington.
Yeah, that's gonna be an intriguing one as well. CE Bird. I mean, they lost really to a students student right off the student section coming in at quarterback for Parkway, and he did a great job. This first game he played since his freshman year, so it is insane that they're able to win like that. But um, Huntington's had a pretty special season this year. To really good start to the season. I like how they're playing. I mean, they suffered some pretty big wins already, with Evangel, with Captain Shreve. Like, I like how Coach Dennis' team is playing. It's kind of like us against the world mentality. I like how they're playing right now. So give me Huntington to win this football game over Bird.
All right, now we're gonna get to our main card of the of this weekend. Starting off with Ruston at Washington Parish. Ruston, uh, of course, we all know about them. They're arguably the number one overall pound for pound team in this state. Last week, they're coming off a 56-17 win over Stephenville, and Stephenville's the number one 4A team in the state of Texas. So that's just kind of that just shows you the magnitudes of what
Right.
Ruston is doing right now. They're undefeated. They just look like the strongest team. And so, well, my bad, 63-17. I wanted to double check that.
Hmm.
So, this is a team that's you're looking at a team that's on a mission, and right
Yeah.
now we're witnessing history with this Russian team.
Oh yeah.
Uh, now they're going against a Washington Parish team that beat a really good Franklin Parish team, although it was 51-47. So it was a high scoring,
Hmm.
uh, affair. Reminds you a lot of the Shreveport games. You don't really see
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
in the Monroe
Big
area.
12, Big 12 games is what Shreveport football
Yeah,
is right now.
yeah. But, and Ruston, of course, they're a very strong team. They're an improved team. One of their better players is Dylan Berriman, who's one of the top
Mhm.
defensive lineman prospects in the country. Jace, do you think Ruston can pull off the historic upset?
Well, I mean, after all, I mean, Louisiana, they can't. I mean, they can't afford to take away or escape Ruston for that long. I know Ruston pretty much played their whole non-district. It seemed like in the state of Texas, but now like you're gonna the Louisiana team's gonna have to face them now. There's no point of escaping them. But Washita is a really good football team. I can see why Ruston might sleepwalk a little bit with this one, especially with all the noise that's being surrounded with them in their program and all the positive feedback they're getting, about being maybe the number one team in the state and all that, as dominant as they've been. And Washita was able to beat Franklin Parish, which was a really good win, considering Franklin Parish defeated Calvary Baptist earlier this season. But until otherwise, I have Ruston as my number one team in the state for a reason, and they've just been that good for them to be able to beat teams in Texas like that. That are some of the more, I mean, better programs in the state of Texas, and Ruston having their way with them. Like, until I see otherwise, I'm gonna keep on rolling with the Ruston Bearcats.
Hmm. Yeah, me too. Ruston's just a wagon right now. I just
Yeah,
don't see them losing at all this year. I mean, and
yeah,
that's saying a lot because they still got Alexandria on the schedule. They still have Neville on the
Neville.
schedule, and they still
Yeah,
have West Monroe on their schedule.
yep,
I just don't see anybody beating this team. I mean, they look awesome. They look even better than they did last year.
yeah,
And if you know how good they were last year, then you would understand like why I'm saying this. I mean, this is just like we're witnessing history right now with this wrestling team that, like in terms of dominance, that we haven't seen in a little while.
it's
In
like
terms of
this is
what they've done.
the last 3 years. Grant, they runner up in the state championship against against that
Chester.
And then last year, they have the season like they did. They won a state championship. They're finally able to knock down that door, and then took another step. It looks like that they're even better. So like each in the last 3 years, they have gotten better and better. And man, it's scary what this Russian football team is looking like right now.
All right, let's talk about Westboro and Alexandria. That's another
Yeah.
big time district matchup in District 2 5A. West Monroe, they're 3-2 to start the year. The two losses are against Pulaski Academy in Arkansas, which is
Mm,
the top program in the state of Arkansas. And Pulaski Academy is always known to produce a lot of top-notch players. And then they also lost against a Catholic team that, although they were coming off a huge loss against U High, that Catholic team still one of the more talented teams in the state, and it showed why, winning 31 to
Yeah.
14. But they were able to pick up a bounce back win last week. And this week they have a really tough matchup against a Alexandria team that's 6-0, coming off a huge 43 to 40 victory against Scrapping. By the way, West Monroe beat Scotlandville 50 to 0 last
Yeah.
week. So a
Yeah.
lot of frustration being shown on the field last week. But Alexandria, led by JT Lindsay, who's one of the top running backs in the country. Of course, Carson Sellers is a quarterback.
Yeah.
He's improving as the year goes on. He's only a sophomore. They got a lot of talent all across the field. They got length, they got speed, they got size. Jace, you know, does Alexandria put the 7-0, or do we see West Monroe pulling up the huge victory to start district play?
Yeah, this is gonna be a toss up. I was kind of going back and forth on this one, Grant. But I like how Ash is playing. I mean, and also how many times you think Ash comes in as a favorite against West Monroe. I mean, it hasn't really been that often being a favorite against them. I probably would have worried a little bit if this game was at West Monroe, knowing how tough it is
Yeah.
to play over there. And if the game was at West Monroe, I probably would actually pick the Rebels here. But since it's at home at Ash, and I think Ash is the better team than West Monroe right now, because you saw how the way Carson Sellers playing and throwing the football to Darius Washington and uh, Lindsey and those guys, right? JT Lindsey running the football as good as he is, the LSU commit. Jimmy Duncan, the other wide receiver too. This is an explosive offense, but they have a big old line. They can ground and pound you. This is a very balanced offense. I like how they're playing right now for obvious reasons. They've been really hot to start the season. Looks like Ash is on that special type of year, like you saw just a couple years ago when they were pretty much a play short of winning a state championship against Acadiana. So this is a special year for Ash, and just to see him continue to roll, especially with that game being home. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere in that stadium playing against the Rebels. So give me Ash with the Trojans being at home and continuing that undefeated streak.
Yeah, definitely. I think we could pick Ash in this one. I would agree with you too. If this game is being played at West Monroe, and knowing just the mystique of that place. Just hearing stories from my
Yeah.
mom when she taught there during the night. She taught there the 98-99 academic year, and that
Mhm.
was a year actually they won the state championship. I
Yeah.
don't know who was over. I know they won the state championship because that was my mom's first time experiencing a program like that. I'm
Yeah.
saying, she because she was teaching in New Orleans a lot at the time, and then when my dad got the job at ULM,
Mhm.
when it was Northeast at the time, that was really her first experience with like kind of like a football
Oh
oriented
yeah.
school. Oh yeah, they beat Ruston 32 to 14 actually. So um, yeah, so that's my mom's first experience with that, and there's a lot of mistake with that place, but now it's Alexandria. I think the way Alexandria's been
Mhm.
playing, it's been incredible. They just probably played the best football other than Ruston in that district.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick the Church in this one to win big. Next week they'll play Pineville, and they should win that one. Unless Pineville pulls a Vandy and plays the most
Yeah.
perfect game in the world. But then they should have an undefeated matchup with Ruston. And I think that week will be the number one matchup in the state for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah.
So give me the Ash Churches to win in a tight one at Church Stadium. Um, Moving on, and really, I think this is probably the top matchup of the weekend. I'm not really doing it in order. I'm just kind of going
Yeah.
by
Sure.
region basis, and then going down the list. And that's Parkway and Airline.
Mhm.
This is a game between two 5-0 programs, both with a lot of explosive firepower. Of course, we know about Parkway scoring 40 plus points a game. They've been awesome. I mean, last week was the first time they allowed more than 20 or more points in a game. That was against a very pesky Captain Shreve team that ran the ball. Well, not Captain Shreve. It was that
Bird.
Seabird.
Bird.
Bird, yeah, yeah, one of the Shreveport schools, but Seabird. Um, and Seabear was able to kind of come back late. Um, and that's because a lot of that had to do with Parkway being out of some of their starters on offense. And so
Yeah.
that'll be a very interesting storyline going on this weekend to see if
Yeah.
who comes back. But Airline, we know about Airline. Airline is just let's throw the ball down the field. Somebody's going to be open, and we're going to score 60 points a game, and we're also going to allow 50 points a game because
Yeah.
that's how
Basketball
those
and
games
grass.
work. They would rather be in those shootouts because they
Oh, yeah.
know that the other team can't compete with them. But Airline, Ben Taylor, of course, we got to mention, he could break the career passing touchdown record this year.
Yeah.
I think he believes that 107. The record's like 146, I believe.
I
So he
believe
could
so.
easily surpass it, if he keeps going at this rate. But
Yeah.
Jace, who you got in this game?
Yeah.
This is a toss up right here.
Yeah, you just mentioned it with the offensive starters, especially what Parkway did last week and literally going into their student section and plucking a kid from the student section to play quarterback for him. Now, he played really well, and it's not like it was a total stranger. He played quarterback his freshman year. So, like, he's got some experience playing quarterback. He came in and played, and he's a actually one of the better lacrosse players in the country. So it was a pretty good athlete they were able to pluck and play quarterback. But still, um, going in a shootout with Ben Taylor and the airline, if this does turn into a shootout, even though Parkway's been averaging over 40 points a game, this is a different animal against this airline offense, and becomes a shootout like I think it can be because they gave up, like you mentioned, Bird. We actually one of our Player of the Week nominations is from Bird, and it was the running back who had 291 yards rushing on 8 carries. So if it comes a shootout, we saw what Airline can do. They're comfortable playing in these type of shootout games, and the way this offense is, I have to go with Airline. Ben Taylor, like you mentioned, he's on pace to beat that record, and he included playoffs too. He definitely can beat that record. The way Airline's been scoring, I mean, what was the score last week? I mean, they won 69 to 68.
69 to 68. Yeah.
69 to 68. All right. So, I mean, they just don't lose these type of shootouts. And like you'd think it would go against them, but they keep on winning these shootouts. I don't know how, but I have to go with Airline Vikings because I do anticipate this being a type of higher scoring game with some of those offensive stars being out for Parkway too. I'm going to lean with the Vikings here.
Yeah, I'm good. Same here. I'm going to go airline. Although Parkway's defense has been great this year. I think it just really all depends on the health of some of the guys they were missing
Yeah.
last week. So
Yeah.
if they're all healthy, I mean, I expect this. I think Parkway could do enough to slow him down. But although I think I'm going to still go with airline in both situations. Uh, Moving on to West Washita, Franklin Parish. Of course, West Washita is undefeated. They're 5-0, really should be in the top 10 of the LSWA poll. If I'm not, they really should be.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been playing some awesome football all year long. They will be traveling to Franklin Parish, which is another very good 4A team, and really this could determine the district championship right here
Yeah.
in week 6. Franklin Parish last week they lost against Washita Parish. So in a tight game, Washita Parish, of course, is a very improved team. And it also won't affect Franklin Parish all that much because Washington Parish is a 5A team. Of course, Franklin Parish is a 4A team. But this result right here between these two teams, I think will determine the district champion for sure, or at least be in the driver's seat
Hmm.
for the district championship. Jace, who you got between these two red hot teams right now?
Yeah, both of them have been really red hot. But over the last couple of years, like West Washita has been we see him go off to really good starts, right? 5-0 starts, 6-0 starts. But, they would actually kind of limp into the postseason, like 6-4, 5-5. So this is a part of the stretch where West Washita, like, what can they do with the stretch, right? Because we've seen them go in district play and they struggled sometimes. Once again in district play. So this is a big point for the Chiefs and what they can do moving forward. But even though they're undefeated, they got some pretty good wins. They beat Sterlington, which is a pretty good win for them. Especially Sterlington was able to play Neville, really tough this year, which was big. But I like Franklin Parish. I mean, I like this football team. Even their loss, right, against Washita Parish, that's a good loss. It was a high-scoring game. These guys also beat Calvary Baptist. I mean, Desiree Ellis is a heck of a player, a guy that we talk more and more about. And Coach Burnett actually told us as well, like keep talking more about him because he's that good. But I like this Franklin Parish football team, the teams that they've been playing so far, that they're battle tested, they're really talented. They got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and you saw that a little bit in that Calvary game. And that's one big reason why they won that game because it's like, hey, we're not getting any respect. Everybody's talking about Calvary, nobody's talking about us. Let's go and show them. So they got a little bit of an attitude too, which I like. So I like Franklin Parish here to get a win over West Washington.
You know what? I'm gonna probably pick West Washington.
Okay.
Well, actually, I thought they were home. Then never mind that.
And that's
I don't know. That's a toss. That's a toss up. That's a toss. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Franklin Parish because I thought they were at home at first. I was reading the
yeah,
schedule wrong, but
yeah,
I'm gonna have to go with Franklin Parish. I think Franklin Parish. I think just having the quarterback advantage and you have the home field advantage. So, if you get two of those, so I value home stadium coach and uh, play and quarterback. And I think Franklin Parish is two of those things. And I'm really kind of torn on who's a better coach between the two coaches right now. But but I think Franklin Parish is the better team right now. I think they'll end up winning this game because they're at home. I think that everything just plays with their advantage with this game. And also coming off a tough loss this week, very good Washington team. But I wouldn't be shocked if West Washington we're able to pull off this victory and be 6-0 and show, hey, everyone should be looking at us. But
yeah.
I think Franklin Parish will pull this game off. Another game we want to get to. Let's move down a little bit further south. We got Leesville at Iowa. Leesville, they're red hot. I believe they're 4-1. Xavier Ford has been one of the better running backs in the state. I believe he leads all running backs in rushing yards, if I remember correctly. Of course, John Dartez is the leader in rushing yards, but he's a quarterback. Yes, but yeah, so that just shows you how good John Dartez's season's gone.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. And so, their one loss was against Sam Houston team. That's also very good. And we'll also be mentioning pretty shortly here as well. But they'll be going because the Iowa team. Iowa, I believe, is 4-1. I had looked at their schedule. I know they're really good to start off the year. But I do know that this game it will be a district title game for sure. Oh, yeah, they're 4-1 as well. Their only loss was against Little Cypress, which is a high school in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't lost a game in state, but they've been red hot. They've been every single one of their wins has been by double digits. They beat Wassman 41-18. They beat St. Louis Catholic 50-48. They beat Parkview Baptist 45-35, and then they beat Jennings 30-22. So this is a huge game right now in the Lake Charles, Lake Charles, Central Louisiana area. But Jace, who you got in this game between these two really good teams?
Man, this is a toss-up as well. I mean, this can go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. But as you mentioned, Xavier Ford, you're not going to shut him down. There's no way you're going to shut him down. But can you manage the situation with him, right? He's going to get his, but is he going to completely take over the game? That's what it's going to come down to. Iowa and the other side, I mean, they got some good players. I mean, Jonathan Walker was their Gridiron football player of the week a couple of weeks ago. He's a guy who can run the football, can catch the football, really good athlete. Cohen Charles is a really good receiver as well. They got some really good athletes on that team. I can definitely see this being a higher scoring type of game. Man, like this is a toss up. I mean, I can see Xavier Ford taking over the football game too. But right now, I mean, Iowa's also defending district champions, I believe, in this district too. So, Jennings wants some revenge, and they want to take the district championship too, which could be a result as well. Getting revenge on them, man, Grand. This can go really either way. The game is being played at Iowa. Sometimes that's what I lean towards. Like, what's the home game? A lot of times, But I feel like this year, um, the best players and the, like small, like best, especially when games being this close, I can see this being a game where Xavier Ford kind of leaves a stamp on this game and like as a senior and just take over this game. So with that being said, I'm going to go with the slight edge. I mean, slight edge to the Wampus Cats right here because they do have the best player on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go with Leesville too. Uh, Leesville, I think just ran out the way Xavier Ford's been playing. He's an unstoppable force. Iowa's a really good team.
Yeah.
They've always been a solid program. But I'm gonna have to go with Leesville in this one to get the huge victory over the Yellow Jackets. All right, Chase. Moving on. Let's talk about that Southside Sam Houston game. Sam Houston, of course, 4-1. They've been red hot to start the year. They have a lot of players return from a team from last year,
Mhm.
and because last year they had like really good year, the 7-3, which is kind of the shocker of that area. Um, and then also, Southside's coming off of a huge win over Barb. They're 3-1. St. Houston's 4-1. This game has a lot of, I guess you could say, quote unquote, district title uh, aspirations in this game, just because both teams have not lost in district yet,
Mhm.
and whoever wins this game will be tied for first, and will have a chance to compete with Acadiana for a district title. I mean,
Yeah.
Jace, who you got in this game?
Yeah, that's pretty tough, right? I mean, Southside has been playing a lot better since their opening season loss against Notre Dame when they lost 21-20. But hey, they beat a really good Mass and Prep team that's fine at stride right now. They're able to blank out Lafayette. You saw how good Barb can be, and they got a really talented young quarterback too on their football team. I beat them 31-14. And you look at, I mean, you look at Sam Houston. I mean, they're able to defeat Leesville. We just talked about that was a game where both
Mhm.
running backs ran for like 300 yards and 6 touchdowns apiece. That was insane. Their one loss is against one of the best teams in the state right now, Interlands Catholic. That's undefeated right now and playing at a high level. Man, this can go either way. With Sam Houston's playing really well right now. They're coming off a 41-34 win over Lafayette. I just like how Southside has been able to put it together a little bit more over the last couple of weeks with Jess Curtis and the way that they're playing, the way they're building confidence. I feel like Ramon Singleton's a really underrated player, and definitely needs to be talked about. This just shows you how crazy of a year it is at the running back position, but he's another good one. So I think this could be one of the biggest like marquee wins early on for the Jess Curtis era. I like Southside here to get a big win over Sam Houston and potentially set up a great matchup between them and Acadiana for district title.
Yeah, besides that, I mentioned Ramon Singleton. They get Ashton Labbitt, who's
Yeah,
a really good player as well. And then also, there's some key defensive players you didn't watch as well on Southside, which is Derek Collins, who's a fantastic player.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then Carson Goulas is a dude who's just a phenomenal safety. He's a hard hitter, and you wouldn't even like looking at him in person. He's not even the biggest player on the field, but he plays like
mhm,
he's 6'3", 200. He's a
right.
hard hitter for sure. And Sam Houston, of course, Gavin Stout's back, Drew Bailey's back. I mean,
Bailey, he's a running
Ty
back.
Stout. I mean, yeah, they got a lot of dudes on that team. And this is a very talented Cooper Smith. These are guys are all very talented. They're the wagon behind this Sam Houston team that has been a solid program in Southwest Louisiana for the past 2 years. Uh, Jace, moving on. We got another big time matchup. This time we're going to be moving a little bit towards the east, and that's St. Martin's Episcopal at Riverside Academy. Of course, this is a game that's being played in the River Parishes. St. Martin's, they're coming off a tough loss at Pope John Paul II in a very tight game. Against the Pope John Paul II that had to control the game for most of the game. I mean,
Yeah,
they were in the lead for most of the game. I was talking to Coach Dyser yesterday, actually, because I was actually interviewing Harlan Berry for an article I'm doing for Crescent Sports.
right.
And he talked about Pope John Paul II he just played the perfect game. Basically, had the ball for a long period of time. They're basically playing keep away from this very talented St. Martin because it's not even just Harlem Bear; it's also their quarterback Ashton Oliver.
Yeah.
They've developed a lot of big time players to make it not just it's the Harlem Bear show. Let's make it let's develop these players we got right now and make them into a solid foundation of a team instead of just of course hand the ball to Harlem Bear, which sounds nice and all. But they don't have to give them the ball as much. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Oh
They
yeah.
don't have to give the ball to Harlem as much because they got better players. They also got some other players around it too.
Yeah.
But they're 4-1. They still started the season strong. They picked up a big win over Pearl River to start the year, actually, who just beat a pretty good Chalmette team. And
Yeah.
then Riverside, of course, they had a kind of a rough start to the year. They've already experienced 2 losses this season. Last week they actually played for Maryland Catholic, John Dartez, and John Dartez did John Dartez things. It's always hard to stop them, but their 2 losses against Terrebonne in a very tight 48 to 42
Right.
loss. And then they lost against Maryland Catholic. So those are the only 2 losses. And last season they beat St. Martin's twice. So
Yeah.
Jace, do we see another victory for Riverside, or do we see St. Martin's gain a huge bounce back victory?
I actually have 3 in a row for Riverside here because Riverside. I mean, everybody's going to say this is the showdown with the running backs, right? With Harlem Berry on one side for St. Martin's, they got Dedrick Lassie on the other side for Riverside. But I think their ability they can also throw the football too. A Brock Bourgeois quarterback. They got 2 really talented receivers on the outside to throw the football to as well. I like their balance there. They're a little bit more battle tested too, and playing some of those bigger teams like you mentioned, like Terrebonne. I thought that was a very impressive loss. Playing a team that's been really good at the 5A level this year and having a really good season. And Terrebonne only lose to them by 6 points was a pretty good loss. And with Vermilion Catholic, that was a game where John Dartez, like, he was determined after losing the semifinals to them last year, like, hey, we gotta win this game. They prevented us from going to the Superdome last year. Like, we need this football game, like, and he put them on their backs. So with this being said, I think it's going to be a very entertaining football game. Obviously, when you got those two of the more fun running backs to watch in the state. So Harlem Bear is going to get his. You mentioned Ashton Oliver; he is a really talented runner as well. So like, it's not like like let's try to take Harlem Berry out, but Ashton Oliver is going to keep it himself, and he's going to burn you. If he can run the football too. So like, yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. It's going to be high scoring. That. It's gonna be some fun plays in this football game for sure. It's gonna be a fun game that right up and down the field with these running backs. But I think I like an overall team. I think Riverside's a better overall team, and I think Riverside's gonna get the win.
Yeah, and by the way, just got some breaking news for you. The Jets just fired Robert
Yeah,
Saleh.
Cameron actually just texted me that too. So I got this. The Jets fired Robert Saleh. So that's big
Yeah,
news to start this Tuesday morning.
yeah, it's not like Robert Saleh throwing 9 for 30 in a loss to the Texas. Oh, but not the Texas. Whoever they lost to, it was awful. The Vikings, yeah. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna pick Riverside in this one too. I think Riverside. Uh, I think just right now they're the better. Even though they're 2-2 to start the year, I just think that they're a little bit of a stronger team than St. Martin's. Even though St. Martin's has done a lot of things to improve as a team as a whole. I mean, just DJ Glassy is too much to handle. I mean, DJ Glassy is just a handful for any team to handle. I mean, just keep giving the speed and this
I don't know how
acceleration.
you can
And you
see
also
him
go,
in the hole. Like because he's so small. He's like 5'5", and you're a
yeah,
defensive lineman. You're trying to
yeah,
find where he's at.
yeah. And then you got a guy like Boogie Johnson, who's really
Yeah.
good as well. As a freshman, he was a starter for them as an eighth grader. Now he's gotten bigger as a player, so he's also a lot to handle. And then they also have an experienced quarterback in Brock Bourgeois, who's a really solid quarterback. And
Nehemiah Phillips also scored 3 touchdowns for him against Vermilion Catholic. He's the other wide receiver. So,
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of. I just think that just Riverside is a little bit more
mhm.
than St. Martin's, although I think this game will be close.
Yeah.
Just because St. Martin's is the one that had back to back back-to-back losses. You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll be very close, but I think Riverside will pull it off. And also they have the edge with the home field advantage.
Right.
But moving on, let's talk about and go to the New Orleans area this time. These last three matches we're going to talk about are all in the New Orleans area, and one of them is actually in could be played in the state of New Orleans. Edna Carr versus Brother Martin at Cat Gormley, and the Carr, of course, arguably the top team in Division One Select. So and really them and Russell are probably the two best teams in the state
Yeah.
right now. They're coming off a huge 34-13 victory over St. Aug, and they pretty much controlled the game for the whole entire way. A lot of great players. I think we mentioned before how many the amount of players they have. They're committed to Power Five schools. Brother Martin is a very good team as well. Last year, Brother Martin gave Endicott a scare last year. They have a really good. They have a very talented receiving core led by Easton Royal, who's been a sophomore sensation, just not only for Brother Martin, but across the city of New Orleans. And there's also other good receivers as well. Brody Demonche, Rich LeBlanc, Rowan Lipscomb, and they also have a really talented quarterback set. And I think they could give this Carr secondary some problems because last week they struggled. They struggled a little bit because I know they St. Aug going to score 13 points, but they were struggling a good bit against St. Aug's passing attack. So I'm wondering how that would translate into this game. But Jace, I mean, who you got? Do you think Brother Martin could give and the Carr the first loss of the year, create even more chaos in an already chaotic Catholic League, or you think Carr will pull up the victory to stay undefeated?
It's kind of like what I said about Rustin, right? Until I see otherwise, until they prove me otherwise, I gotta go with in the car until they prove me otherwise. But I do have to say this, like you mentioned, Brother Martin can play upset here. I mean, they showed last week. I mean, they beat Rummel. I mean, we were praising Rummel, and we're talking about the Rummel Raiders being that second team in the Catholic League that can challenge in the car. And what they do, they beat Rummel. They beat Rummel. So. They can give you some problems with their passing game, like you mentioned, with Seth Azet, with Easton Royal, with Lipscomb, with all those weapons, right? And I think that's their best chance of hanging in there with Carr. And the Carr is just a machine. I mean, like, with Bryce Brown, like, they just never panic. Like, even when they were down by 20 against Holy Cross, like, they just never flinch. Like, they never get panicked, and that's what makes a championship program, right? I see them in the Superdome, down by like 20 against Warren Easton, and they did not panic. I mean, so this is a team that's just there's no major flaws. Even though the secondary, like you said, they gave up some passes, gave up some plays against St. Aug, they still got Aiden Hall back there at safety, and they got some pretty good players back there in the back end, and they don't really have any major weakness, major flaw. So with that being said, I mean, until they prove me otherwise, until they lose, I mean, I keep on rolling within the car, and it's why would you pick against them right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I think right now I'm really interested to see if Brother Martin's rushing attack comes alive because they need to start running the ball. They need to start running the ball a little bit more effectively. That's kind of been their issue since the start of the year. They really haven't come up with a clear running back. I know Sidney Harris is the running back. I'm not sure.
Because Brother Martin's known for running.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Sidney Harris is back yet. I think he should be. I don't know if he's back. That's actually a question I can ask my little brother, who's pretty close with Sidney. But yeah, this is good. But no, as of right now, they just don't have a clear running back right now. Even though that's a great passing attack, the only way you can really start opening up that passing attack is to run the ball, and especially against a Carr team that's that's very talented and very well coached. They got to really start opening up that rushing attack because I think that's the only way they can upset Carr. I do think they can beat Carr, but it would be a little bit easier if they could run the ball, but have the Carr Cougars, I think, winning a relatively close game for most of the game before they pull away late. And they were to remain undefeated and also still be the top dogs of the Catholic League right now. But now we're going to move to the North Shore. And, Jace, we're going to have to mention this game because I think this is a very sneaky game. Like we mentioned how like Pope John Paul II and St. Mary's was kind of a sleeper game that we didn't really talk about. I think this game has a lot of potential. It's a district title game
Yeah.
because I think whoever wins this game will win the district title, and that's Lakeshore, undefeated, 5-0, one of the stronger rushing attacks in the state. Uh, of course, Brent Endes is doing a great job with this Lakeshore program. Uh, they will be traveling to Franklinton, who
Yeah.
is 4-1, coming off a huge victory over Joe Sumner, which we were at the game last week. They got a lot of key pieces on that team. That very good players on that team, and they're also led by Coach Saul. Coach Saul's still doing his thing. Nick Formaggio's still doing a great job with this Franklinton team, which a program that really hasn't kind of experienced. It's had a little while. I mean, it's been a while since like Franklinton has kind of been the spotlight. Under Shane Smith, they were a wagon. I mean, they're going to the playoffs every year, winning
Mhm.
10+ games almost every year. And it seems like they kind of had that feeling back again, and
Yeah.
they can pull off a huge victory over Lakeshore. Remember, Franklinton is the number one team in the power ratings,
Yeah.
and Lakeshore is the number three.
Yeah.
So these are two very good opponents according to the power ratings, and really this game
Oh,
could also determine seeding when it gets to playoff time. So Jace, who you got, man? This is two really great
yeah.
coaches, two very well coached teams. I mean,
Mhm.
it's gonna be jam packed.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, these are two coaches that won state championships. I mean, Brendan Ness at Lakeshore, he had a lot of success at Catholic Iberia. And you look at Franklinton with Coach Salt. I mean, what he's been able to do, he led East Jefferson to a state championship over at Nacar, which was really, I mean, that's saying a lot. You look at the program now, but I think Lakeshore. This is a weird game, Grant, just because I think Lakeshore is the better team. But there's just something about this Franklinton team. I don't know what is it. Some kind of magic, some kind of some voodoo. I don't know. But and also they're motivated still because like Coach Salt was like, why aren't we ranked? I mean, we
Yeah,
beat like three teams and this was before this week and they're still not in the top 10 in the LSWA poll. So
yeah,
we got some votes, but they're still not in the top 10. So with that being said, they're using that as motivation. You know that this is a very motivated Franklinton team that's out to prove a point. Now, I think, like I mentioned, Lakeshore, I think they're the better team than Franklinton. But with the game being at Franklinton, with some of that mojo, winning games like they've been, hanging around and finding a way to win and having that type of magic, bring that magic back to Franklinton, I see this being a very magical night for Franklinton on Friday with the atmosphere and with some of the motivation that this team has. There's something about this team, and I'm going to actually pick Franklinton here in an upset.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, I like the fact that this game is at home for Franklinton. Last week they proved that they could play against teams like because they faced a very similar team in Jill Sumner
Yep. Yep.
last week. I mean, they both run the same
Yeah.
offense. They both have very similar players. I mean,
Yep.
really, Jill Sumner is actually bigger than Lakeshore
Yeah.
in terms of the running back because Jill Sumner's running backs are huge.
Oh, yeah, they
Those
are.
guys are 6'2", 190 as juniors. I mean, those are some
Yeah.
big boys that put in the ball back there. And even though they had a tough time trying to stop them, they were able to win in the end. I mean, Franklinton was able to hang on there. Jacob Crane, I think, have a great game against his
Yeah.
Lakeshore defense. It's really going to come down to if they can force turnovers, and then also, kind of slow down this. I don't think you're able to stop this Lakeshore
Yeah.
Winty offense, but I do think that you can slow them down if they can able to slow the game down and be efficient on offense. I think they can win this game. And the fact that this is at Franklinton, I think it's gonna be a packed stadium.
Oh, yeah.
It's been a little while since this Demon program has beaten Lakeshore,
It'll
and so I
take
think
me a
everyone's very
long
excited.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Coach Saul's going to have these boys ready to play. It's going to be
Mhm.
he's got these boys motivated. These guys have never beaten Lakeshore, and I think this is the best time to do it. I think
Yep.
Franklinton is going to beat Lakeshore. And if they do lose, it'll be a very close game between two very good programs at the moment, led by two really good coaches. I mean,
They
these,
have to be in
those,
there. They have to
yeah,
be in the top 10 if they
yeah,
make it. Well, they have
yeah,
to.
these two exactly, and these two teams are really well coached. I can't see this game being a blowout either way. I really
No.
don't.
It should be a fun.
Um,
Should be a fun one.
yes, yes, and you should be very, and I believe it should be very well covered. I wouldn't be surprised if there's gonna be more media at this game, given the circumstances after Franklin did last week,
Right.
and then also just playing against a team like Lakeshore. It's gonna be a lot of
Yeah.
eyes on Franklin, and it should be the first time there's a lot of eyes on Franklin in a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Because you get five, a little over 5 years, really 10 years, that when the last time Shane Smith was the head coach.
Yeah.
But now, the last game, well, we're going to talk about before we wrap things up, is going to be Covington Manville. It's not last because it's the worst game in the world, the worst game of the weekend. Now it's because I'm just going by region by region. I'm not really doing the top 10, but this is a really good matchup. I believe this is actually the top matchup in the New Orleans area. Two 5-0
Yeah.
teams. Covington's been a wagon. They've been they're five. They've been dominating each and all of their 5 wins. But this will pretty much be the. I mean, and they did beat Franklin, by the way. That's the only team that has beaten Franklin. And Covington was able to pull away late.
Yeah.
So that just adds credence to how good Franklin can be. But Covington, they've scored 30 plus points, all for except one, which is a 28-0 shutout victory over North Shore. Actually, the last two victories for them have been shutouts, and they've combined to score 76 points. So they've won their last two games 76-0. They'll be traveling to Mandeville High School to take on the Skippers, who are just red hot right now. I mean, they've only lost one game since this month of November, and that was in their semifinal game against Ruston. This red hot Mandeville team led by Nate Shepard, who is on a historic run right now.
Yeah.
He scored 24 touchdowns in the month of September alone,
Yeah.
and he's on pace to score like 90. I think you said if you
Yeah.
if you did the math, he was on pace to score 90.
Yeah.
So he's just having an incredible year, and it's not just Nate Shepard, by the way. Dylan Henry's a fantastic receiver.
Their
They got
secondary is
they
really
got
good. Yeah.
yeah, secondary is really good. They got a solid quarterback and Ben Hendricks.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is very solid, led by Marquez Zenon. I mean, Jace. I mean, who do you think is going to remain undefeated after this game?
Yeah, this is a really good game, man. And Covington's got some really talented young athletes. I mean, they're on the outside, that receiver, in the secondary. Like they are a really talented football team, and like they're a really underrated team. They're really flying on the radar. So it's great that they get this coverage of a big game because they really deserve it. They're a really good football team. But I saw Mandeville play in the scrimmage this year in the jam against Jesuit, and I was really impressed. I mean, Nate Shepard is impressive enough. I mean, he's having an incredible season, like you mentioned, 24 touchdowns in 1 month. I mean, have that in a year. That's an awesome year. He's had that in a month, which is insane, mind blowing. And then they have a big offensive line. Their offensive line is really good. I mean, they got a really good unit up front. Ben Hendricks is a really good quarterback. He just gets overlooked because he has to hand the ball off to Nate Shepard, but he's a really good quarterback too. I like this Mandeville football team. They were a semifinal team last year, and they were pretty much one game away from the Superdome, and they've been very motivated this year. I think everything's coming together for this team with former Lakeshore coach Craig Jones leading the way. Craig
Yes.
did a great job of really jump starting a young program and getting Lakeshore to where they are today. And Mandeville is a really strong football team. They're another team that they're well balanced. We talk about Nate Shepard, but they're pretty well balanced across the board. Covington's a really good football team, but I mean, like I said about Xavier Ford, Mandeville has the best player on the field in games like this. That's going to be the difference. And so otherwise, I'm going to go with the Skippers, but it should be a great football game between these two teams.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Skippers too. It's gonna be a tough task to stop a guy like Nate Shepard,
Yeah.
especially the way he's been playing. Um, and I just think that it's gonna be. I think it might be a little close game. But I think Mandeville will pull away late. And really, this game, I mean, like I said, Jace, this game, I mean, whoever wins this game will be the front runner for the
Yep.
district title right now
Yep.
because you still have St. Paul's down the line for both these teams. Mandeville will play St. Paul's in week 9, and Covington will play St. Paul's in week 10 the week after.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff can happen. You can easily see St. Paul's winning against Mandeville
Oh,
and
yeah.
then having to play quintessentially a district title game with Covington, and it could be a three-way tie
Three-way
at the
tie.
end of the year.
Yeah.
This district, which is just showing you like this district is actually a lot better than a lot of people would think. And then also, I'll say this: Hammond's looking pretty impressive too.
Yeah, they are.
Hammond, so I mean, you can't leave out Hammond. Hammond could easily play a spoiler for one of these teams that we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll beat them, but Hammond's been a little pesky so far. They've only lost one game, I believe. If not, I think they may be undefeated actually, if I remember correctly. But they've had a strong start to the season, and Coach Buckles has done a great job. But going back to this game,
Grant should be in contention for Coach of the Year right now.
Yes,
That's how good this Hammond football team has been playing right now. 4-1 right now is what Hammond's doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
one loss came against Dem Springs, and look how Dem Springs is playing football right now.
Exactly right, and the one loss is against Dem Springs. So this game will be quintessential the district championship. Well, not the district championship, but whoever wins the game would be the front runner for the district title. But still, I'll have a long season to go because, of course, I just mentioned both teams still have to play St. Paul also at the end of the year. But I'm gonna, I think Mandeville is going to be that team who's going to be in position to win, to be in the lead for the district title, and then we'll have that big matchup against St. Paul's week 9, which will probably be arguably the top matchup this weekend. If you're talking about matchup, if you're going off of this week alone, right? So, really looking forward to the rest of the year. I mean, this, may not be the strongest week of high school football this weekend, but there's a lot of good games and a lot of sleeper games as well. So, I'm really excited, Jace. So, Jace, to wrap the show up, what can you summarize about all these matchups?
Yeah, it's one of those weeks, Grant, that they don't have. There's not like the one game that's a headlining game that really sticks out among the rest. But I feel like it's a solid slate. Like you got some really a bunch of like underrated games that will go under the radar. But I think they're gonna be really great. There's gonna be some great football this week. I think there's gonna be some great games, some close games. We're getting right into district play, which means some of these games this week are going to determine the district championship. I mean, with some of those games I just talked about. So, like, if not determine the district championship, it's going to at least determine who is in the driver's seat of the district. So, huge week for high school football. We're getting to district play. And, like I said, there's 3 phases to a season. You got your non-district play, you got your district play, and you got playoffs after that. So we're in that second phase right now. And we got some really good football this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, Crescent City Sports is going to give you a lot of coverage. Gridiron football is going to give you a lot of coverage this week of some great high school football games. So check us out, both of us out, and follow the games throughout the weekend. And it's going to be some great football, Grant. Can't wait for another week. Like I said, we only have about 15 of these a year. So we're going to enjoy every minute of it.
Yes, exactly. And, big weekend for Rougarou Sports Media. Of course, I'm going to be releasing the assets graded once again. It's been a week just because of the bye week, and then also I was getting caught up with a lot of articles and everything like that. So there should be a big week, and then also just a reminder, we will be doing Friday nights on the Bayou live on Friday night. When it's all said and done, probably gonna have a guest on for the whole show. I'm gonna try to work that out, but it looks like that's gonna happen. I won't announce anything until probably the day before or the day of. But once again, make sure to tune in. Just leave a comment. If you have any questions, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask because it's going to be live on both YouTube and Twitter. Just make sure you leave the comments. So I have a lot of fun doing it. So does Jace, and it's just it's just a fun time really every Friday night just because you get to see all the shocking results live as it happens. As results get piled in, so it's a pretty cool experience. And then of course, Saturday. We get the LSU Ole Miss game, which me and Jace will both be at covering the press box. So really big week, just in general for football in the state of Louisiana, and of course, but except for the Saints, because oh boy. But
Forgot
anyway,
about last night.
yeah. So anyway, this is Grant Satcher of Rougarou Sports Media and Crescent Sports. Jace LeJeune of Gridiron Football. We'll see you guys on Friday.
Yep.
Peace, y'all.